Just look at what's happening in River State, they say. But beyond the words and what President Tinubu's aides call cheap shots galore, will Nigerians take notice in 2027? Or has the aura and the youth energy that surrounded Peter Obi in 2023 now faded away? Has that dream deferred become a dream that's died? And Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in 2023, joins me now exclusively in the Rise studio. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you, for Charles.
Always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the end of the holy month of Ramadan for Muslim people, of course, who've been fasting for a whole month and are now celebrating at the end of it. So a period of special significance for Islam with lots of spiritual reflection. I wonder what your message is to Muslims at this auspicious time for them.
Well, like I said in my tweets, first is that they've been able, after the fasting and everything, been able to reflect about our country. It is now time to say, where do we go from here? And as I wish them happy Salah, I hope we'll use whatever they've been able to reflect in the past 30 days to hope that we'll build a better Nigeria.
And as you talk pointedly there about reflection, let's reflect on the 2 years into President Tinubu's term, what is known as the midterm. As we look into what he's been doing for the last 2 years, how would you assess his midterm?
Well, Charles, I always don't want to be involved in assessing this present government, because I've always remained consistent that he is doing well. Because what he promised the people is exactly what he's doing. That he will start and continue from where the previous government stopped. And that is doing well, Charles. You can go and use every measure. I've said it in this studio before. Somebody who made dollar at 300 and something, 400, is now 1,005. Charles is done fantastic. Same in fuel, same in everything, same in unemployment, everywhere, in terms of democracy, in terms of everything, is on the sliding side. And that is doing well, because that's what he promised.
Well, I suspect they're likely to disagree with you. I mean, the president's team have suggested that his reforms are working and that his management prudence is bringing back international confidence. They say that growth may be slow, but it's on an upward curve, and that Nigeria's fiscal position has improved considerably, which is the precursor to investing in infrastructure and innovation such as technology. But you don't agree with that assessment?
Charles, when you talk about improvements, there are not things you say. There are things people feel. There are things people see. There are things that, it's just like when you talk about, I've listened to people say jobs are being created. Where are the jobs? If you talk about job creation anywhere in the world, you see the figures. If you talk about improvement in education, you see it. Improvement in health, improvement in this. If you say the government is now doing the right thing, the democratic, the this, you will see it. You just mentioned River State. So where is it? So we can see it. It's not a question of going to say, oh, investors are coming back. Where are the investors? Where are they investing? Companies are closing down. They're leaving. Local companies, manufacturing is going south. So where is it?
Clearly, you're not seeing it.
Nigerians are not seeing it.
Are you possibly, as they say, missing the beat of the moment? his aides are suggesting that perhaps you're focusing too much on playing the opposition card, and you're not seeing the increments that are gradually, making themselves felt in this country.
Charles, the Nigerians are not saying it. I have one politician that moves around in Nigeria, and I know the feeling of the people.
Yeah, but what about prices in the market? I mean, there have been some, maybe not enormous reductions, but there have been some significant reductions, even in fuel, for example, petrol prices. I mean,
where did we start?
They've fluctuated
Charles,
a little, but they've come down.
Charles, where did we start? We started at about 200 to over 1,000, and now it's slightly below 1,000. You have to look at where we started. You didn't just say, oh, it's coming down. No, where did we start? What has changed? Consider the income of the average Nigerian, those who are fortunate to have a job. What it now tells them if they're buying fuel.
So basically, your prognosis, your assessment, just to be clear, is that things have got worse, not better, in spite of the reforms that the president has put in. I mean, you're not agreeing that obviously reforms take a while to begin to be felt in the country. The removal of fuel subsidy, the regularization of price of cost of naira and all the rest of it. I mean, you don't think that those things are reforms that needed to be done? Wouldn't you have done that if you were president?
Charles, I believe that reforms take time for people to start seeing the gains of it.
Well, that's what their argument is.
But people have to see a clear roadmap that what they are sacrificing for, let's take fuel subsidy, which they say there's huge savings. Where is the savings being challenged?
Well, they said, for example, and I'm not a spokesman for the government, but I have to play the devil's advocate because they're not here. I mean, they said that, for instance, more money is being given to the states. And if you look at the numbers, I mean, the amount of money that the states are getting, I mean, it's higher than it used to be. Although some are making the argument, and I suspect you're making the same argument, that because of the devaluation of the naira, what they're getting is not worth anything.
Charles, if you are making a savings, you said, I want to save this money to be able to invest where? You have to invest in critical areas of development. And those critical areas of development are education, health, and pulling people out of poverty. Are we investing in it? Just no.
Well, they would argue that they're investing in education. They're providing funds and loans for students, which has never happened in this country before, to allow them to be able to go to school.
This country has universal basic education. And we have over 20 million children out of school. That is the critical area. It is the basic education that is the critical area. We're not doing anything in it. Just today, I visited an IDP camp. There's over 40,000 people in IDP camps around Abuja. I'm not talking outside Abuja. The one I visited is in Abuja. With over 4,000, they don't have a primary health care.
4,000 or 40,000?
Over 4,000. Right. 40,000 around Abuja. But 4,000 in this particular facility. Right, okay. They don't have a primary health care. They don't have a primary school. They used to have a primary school, which was there by UNICEF. It's closed down for the past 3 years. The kids are there. There's no primary school. There's no health care. So if you don't have that in Abuja, where do you have it? Where? And this is the one you said is free. Free and compulsory. So where are you investing the money?
So your conclusion then is that there isn't a clear plan and a trajectory, that it's kind of all over the place.
That is convincing. Because you have said, I'm removing this, you have to sacrifice, you have to suffer. Where are you investing it? It has to be clear, it has to be verifiable, it has to be visible. People have to see it, they have to feel it.
Right. Let me move away slightly from the economy, because you have suggested that President Tinubu's political decisions and counter decisions are both a cause for concern and a potential threat to Nigeria's democracy. Broadly, tell us more.
Well, I've said it and I maintain, Charles, there's no democracy in Nigeria today. Nigeria today is not a democratic country. Let's stop telling ourselves lies. If you look at all the tenets, look at all the yardstick of measuring democracy, it doesn't exist here. Simple definition, democracy is government of the people, by the people, for the people. Today, the government we have is not of the people. It's not by the people because the people didn't vote. It wasn't their votes. I'm not just talking about presidency. Across the line, look at what happened in Edo. Can you call that democracy? It is not vote of the people. And it's not for the people. I've just told you that I went to an IDP camp where we have thousands of people, no primary health care. They were begging me to have one nurse, which I said I must make sure I bring. They don't even have primary school, which again I told them I will make sure it happens. So what are you doing? For a country that just spent 21 billion naira to renovate a house for the vice president, which is not, hasn't packed in, is not living there. And you cannot even have a primary school for kids who are going to be leaders of Nigeria tomorrow. For people who pass through the same process, tonight deny these kids this opportunity today. So it is not a democratic country. So it's not for the people. You can't have a democracy without a functional and effective legislature, which you know we don't have today. You can't have a democracy without, again, an independent judiciary that fights for the common person. I can go on and on. In a democracy, it is clear. There's guidelines. Even when you set for people vying for election, like in Nigerian case, you have to talk about people must be qualified. They must have primary school, secondary school, university, and must attain certain age. Charles, that is not happening today. People are with unverified, forged certificates all over the place, criminal records and everything, and they're in charge. So you cannot say that. It is, yes, maybe we're striving to be a democratic country, but the way we are today is not. Look at what happened in Rivers that you mentioned. Can you call that democracy?
I'm going to come to Rivers State in a minute, because it would obviously require some analysis and certainly your assessment of what is going on there. But they would argue, the president's aides, that Nigeria may be a faltering democracy, but nevertheless it is a democracy. And one of the hallmarks for assessing that democracy is freedom of speech, and the fact that you can sit here and criticize the government and be quite, forceful in your criticism, forthright, that is a manifestation of at least a measure of democracy.
Charles, I can tell you that even me is being harassed every day. There's no freedom of speech. And you know that yourself, Charles. And I can tell you, and there's so many people who are being detained in one place or the other because they've made one statement or anything.
Well, I have not been harassed, to be fair. But
yes, maybe you've not been, but I've been.
Well, that's unfortunate.
So I can tell you that even that doesn't exist. But when you say, yes, he exists, Charles, when you go for an exam and you score 10%, it's a fail. I'm just giving you the real measure of democracy. We failed in all of them. So it doesn't exist.
So having expressed this alarm, what do you anticipate to be the negative consequences of that threat to democracy that you talk about? What track is Nigeria heading towards as a result? And how damaging might that be? And how would you suggest Nigerians go about counteracting that?
Well, for me, we're headed, you know where we're headed. It will get worse. And when it gets worse, we're now going to threaten to a state of nature, of anarchy, where anybody can do anything you want. Everything is collapsing. Even when the people who are supposed to be seeing it are not seeing it. But you can see the negative impact in all the critical areas, even the education you mentioned, when you said people are being given scholarship to go to school.
Student loans.
Student loans. What is happening in our universities, Charles? Our universities now are politicized, where appointments for management of universities are now political. You now fail local government election, you're appointed on your university board, university governing board, where vice chancellors, they even have been appointed without merit and everything. And the consequences that you see universities now giving honorary degree to all manner of character of people. So even that is deteriorating.
His aides, and again, we have to balance the discussion, deny that there is any such threat to democracy. They say you are pulling the trigger on a non-existent gun and creating an unnecessary level of uncertainty where there is none. I wonder what your reaction is to that.
Charles, I said, go to the people. It is not about me. I'm one with the people. They can say anything they like. You know, when you are in government, you claim anything. But I deal with the reality. The reality is that things are headed south. Go and check all indices of development anywhere. I've told you what is improving. Is our literacy level improving? Is our health condition improving? Even them that are in government don't even go to hospitals here. So that shows that it's not even improving. The same thing goes. Are people being pulled out of poverty? There's still hunger everywhere. Is the agricultural produce increasing? Is manufacturing increasing? No. So where is it?
So in the context of this high uncertainty with regard to democracy and the rule of law that you talk about, that suggests unpredictability and, you know, especially for international investors, which is something they do not like. They don't like unpredictability. They don't like the lack of the rule of law, because obviously it threatens their investments. And ultimately that has an impact from what you're saying on the economy, doesn't it?
That's it. Charles, the first thing you can say that you have a government is security of life and property, rule of law. These are intangible assets that you cannot ignore. It is critical. People go where there's law and order. Nobody goes where there's chaos. Where do you see the rule of law? You are here. You don't need to. I don't need anybody to tell you. You see it every day.
Well, all this talk about democracy and the rule of law leads me inevitably to what you talked about previously, which is Rivers State. I'm sure you've been seeing the rising political temperature there over the past few months, which has heightened with considerable tension. But was it enough for a state of emergency to be declared?
Capital no. You cannot, Charles, take the action that have been taken in Rivers State for what happened. There's a clear path to dealing with that issue. Rivers State, for the past 2 years, have become ungovernable for obvious political reasons and interests, which shouldn't be in a democratic environment. It's clear, it shouldn't be. I have been a governor, and I have left government, had issue with the person that replaced me, with my successor. But for God's sake, the state is far more important than anybody. We have a governor who have been sworn in as the governor. He should be allowed to govern.
So what is your sense of what is behind that presidential declaration? Does it all seem straightforward, or do you detect a sleight of hand there? I mean, we heard a few days ago the former governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi, alleging that President Tinubu's emergency rule in Rivers State is a tactic to intimidate governors who might not support the president in 2027. Is that a bit far-fetched, or do you subscribe to that school of thought?
Well, for me, what happened in Rivers State is very unfortunate and is impacting very negatively to the little or remaining inkling or democratic space we had. He eroded a lot from there. So, as for intimidating the governors for 2027, it shouldn't be. The governors are going to seek re-election. You're going to seek re-election. You're going to seek re-election based on what you've been able to do, your performance. On Nigerians, the governors just have one vote. It is because of what I told you that it is not a democratic country that you are trying to intimidate the governors.
So you believe that that's what he's trying to do? Then?
If that is what I'm just telling you, if that is what he's trying to do,
right,
it's because it's not a democratic setting.
But is it what he's trying to do?
I believe so. I believe so.
And of course, the manner in which the National Assembly, you touched on this briefly earlier, approved that state of emergency with a voice vote is continuing to cause ripples across Nigeria and beyond. Do you agree or disagree with those who say that trust and confidence in the National Assembly has been eroded as a result?
Completely eroded. Very unfortunate. That's why I said there's no functional legislature. It's not there. Our political setting doesn't exist in any democratic environment.
Okay, let me ask you to hold your thoughts there. Let's take a very short break and